Nandu, founder of Successful Vaisnavas, and the soon-to-be started Empower and Preach membership site, where we help devotees to network together to improve their Krishna consciousness and help devotees around them, as well as to help preach to new devotees. I'll talk more about that in the future. So again, it's a little late tonight. I had a bit of a rant that I was going to go on, but because I was doing a little bit of research to prepare that, I think I'll keep it for tomorrow when I'm all fresh and ready to go. But today I just wanted to talk about one point, that when we quote, especially Srila Prabhupada, we should be careful that it's actually an accurate quote. So why am I mentioning it? Because I quoted something and it wasn't quite right. I found a quote on Dandavats about serving prasadam, and I recognized it. I thought to myself, I've seen this before. This looks like His Holiness Bhakti Churu Swami's Vaishnava etiquette guidelines on how to serve prasadam. And then I looked at the bottom and it said, Letter to Ketiraj, Vrindavan 1971. And I thought, wow, all this time I thought that was just Bhakti Churu Swami that wrote that. And here we are, and it's actually a quote from Prabhupada. Wow, I better go and post that one then. So I went and posted it, and there's a few comments because there's really good points made in that list of guidelines. And then one devotee said, are you sure this is actually a Prabhupada quote? Because there seemed to be a lot of extra stuff here that wasn't included in the reference that you gave. Okay. So I checked out the reference. I looked up that original letter, which I think when I first quoted it, I wondered about it. And there was a couple of sites that had quoted it the same way, so I thought, it must be how it is. But I was a little bit more rigorous this time, and I looked it up, and sure enough, the quote to Kirtiraj was just on basically one of the points in that list. And yet, the way that it had been written on Dandavats is that the whole list had been credited as a quote from Prabhupada from that letter. So anyway, I edited my post and I apologized, and also made a comment on the Dandavats page. Someone had already made a comment to say that this isn't an accurate post. So first of all, I'm appreciative of the devotee that pointed it out to me. I'm not sure if it was the same devotee that made the comment on the Dandavats site, but in any case, it's good that devotees question these things, because many times there's quotes from Prabhupada that everybody accepts that maybe Prabhupada never even said. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, although there is this expression in ISKCON which is very popular, that preaching is the essence, purity is the basis, and utility is the principle. So you can find where Prabhupada has quoted purity is the force, books are the basis, preaching is the essence, not directly, but this utility is the principle. I've never found it in any of the recorded writings of Prabhupada or conversations or anything like that. I'm curious if anybody knows the origin of that, because it was put at the top of the Sankirtan newsletter for many years. It may still be there, and it's considered like one of the aphorisms that ISKCON lives by. So I'm just curious about where that came from. In the Vedabase, there's one quote where I think Trivikram Maharaj was translating it into Chinese, and Prabhupada didn't really have much to say about it. So perhaps Hari Shari Prabhu or Trivikram Maharaj might know something about that particular one. So another point when we're talking about quoting Srila Prabhupada, I don't need these, not anymore. Another quote which is, another point is that quotes are often taken out of context. For example, there might be a quote where Prabhupada's talking about an exception to the rule, and a devotee will post it on Facebook, and then devotees read that and think, oh, okay, And rather than understanding that that's the exception, they think that that's the rule. An example recently was a quote where Prabhupada said that he was talking with someone, and the point was made that, you only Krishna Prasadam, how's that possible? And Prabhupada said, well, when we travel, sometimes it's not possible to, get, prasadam. So we have to eat. We can't, starve. So we eat what we can. We find some vegetarian food, and we can eat from the restaurant or something like that. So Prabhupada was talking about the exception. Now, the conversation had its meaning because the principle is not to eat food cooked by non-devotees. And I recently saw a really interesting letter, which I'll share another time, where Prabhupada explains the requirements of initiation. He talks about the 10 offences, and then he also goes and describes some of the basic principles that devotees should follow. And included in that was not eating food cooked by non-devotees. So this is a really important point. And I felt that when this quote was shared on Facebook to say that, if you're travelling, you can eat in the restaurant, because it was out of context, then the main point, which is not to eat food cooked by non-devotees, was kind of minimised. There was no commentary explaining that. Prabhupada said that in emergencies we can do this, but the real point is to only eat food cooked by devotees. Instead, this quote was just put up there, and for many devotees it justifies, okay, cool, I can go down to the local vegetarian or vegan restaurant or Indian restaurant because Prabhupada said that's okay. I'm driving there, right, so that's travelling. Okay, maybe they don't say that, but I think another aspect of it is being responsible when we consider the situation that we are in at the moment. What's the natural tendency of people? And if we give a quote that encourages people in a way which may be not beneficial. So my point in this case is, already many devotees are eating food not cooked by devotees. Kami bread, going out to restaurants and, things like this. So there's already that tendency which is not the ideal standard. So by putting quotes that encourage that, it's really pushing people further in the direction that they already are, further away from the standard. And I think, considering the situation, it would probably be more responsible to share the quotes where Prabhupada says, that we should eat food cooked by devotees and we shouldn't eat, food from outside. So, that's just one example. Another example of out-of-context quote, which I see quite often, is the quote where Prabhupada says, child worship is more important than deity worship. So again, this can be a justification that, I'm a mother, I don't have to do service because, I'm just looking after my child, so that's the highest service I can do. And again, I think that in the previous times, and there may have been a tendency to neglect the children, but I think these days the opposite again is in the case where we can use our family as an excuse for not doing service. And Prabhupada spoke about making arrangements where one mother can look after a few children, so the other mothers can do service. So Prabhupada certainly had that idea. And quoting this, child worship is more important than deity worship, is and for the situation today, I think it's not the main message. And especially when the quote is only given incompletely and without the background. See, the background to this quote about child worship being more important than deity worship, the actual quote is, for you, child worship is more important than deity worship. It was a specific instruction to a specific person in a specific situation. And the letter that Prabhupada wrote even reveals what the situation was. Basically, there was a devotee who felt that deity worship was so important that she should adopt her child to some other devotees. So the other devotees would look after her child, and she would give up her own child so that she could do deity worship. And so this is the background for this letter. So naturally, Prabhupada was quite shocked because, where he comes from in India and in general in civilized, society, people are very attached to their family, and they really protect and look after their family. The idea of just adopting your child out so that you can do something better, is quite a shocking concept. And so, for an ordinary person, you don't need to tell them that you should look after your children. So in this case, Prabhupada's emphasizing that for you it's more important to look after your child than to do deity worship. But that isn't to say that now that I'm a mother, I shouldn't do any deity worship. So again, not picking on any mothers there, please. I'm just trying to give examples of how if we don't know the background behind what Srila Prabhupada's saying, and if we don't see it in context, we might get the wrong message. And also being responsible when we are quoting Prabhupada, to think that, is this quote the most beneficial quote that we can share, given the times that we're living in and the situation that we have at the moment. In the Bhagavad Gita, it says that austerity of speech means to speak which is truthful, pleasing, and beneficial. So some of these quotes may be pleasing, and it may be truthful. We're quoting Prabhupada, so it's truth. It may be pleasing because it's what devotees want to hear. But it may not be beneficial because, considering the situation that we are in at the present time, the advice given may not, be the best advice for the situation. So I think I'll just wrap it up there. I hope that what I've spoken today has been, at the same time, pleasing, truthful, and beneficial. And I'd be interested to hear your feedback. Perhaps you know of some quotes that devotees say, Prabhupada said, and Prabhupada didn't actually say it. Or you can think of other quotes where devotees put Srila Prabhupada's quotes out of context. Another one comes to mind too. Prabhupada, that Prabhupada said, I build a house in which the whole world can live. So it's actually an astrologer that said that, and Prabhupada agreed that was his desire. So that's just an example of how it wasn't something that Srila Prabhupada said, but we like to say that it's something that Srila Prabhupada said. And I'm sure there's some others that might come to mind. If you have any of those quotes that Prabhupada maybe didn't actually say, share them in the comments. And if you can think of any quotes from Srila Prabhupada that may be shared but may not be so relevant anymore, I think this could also be helpful. So I think I will wrap it up now. And once again, I'll just sign off by saying that this is Krishnendu Das from Successful Vaisnavas, and I'm getting ready to launch a membership site where devotees can network with each other to exchange services and ideas, and where we can get training from experts in different aspects of practical and devotional life, specifically for devotees, so that we can all live our life to the fullest in a Krishna conscious way, and spread it to others effectively. So stay tuned for that, and thank you for listening. I will see you again tomorrow. Hare Krishna.